The telegram arrived on the worst morning of Zelda Thompson's life, delivered by a boy whose apologetic expression told her he knew exactly what news it contained before she even unfolded the yellow paper with trembling fingers. Standing on the sagging porch of her small ranch house outside Yosemite, California, in the summer of 1882, Zelda read the words that confirmed her deepest fears. The bank would auction her property in 3 days to settle her late father's debts. 23 years old and alone in the world since her father's death from pneumonia 2 months prior, she had no way to raise the $800 owed. The small cattle ranch that had been in her family since before the gold rush would soon belong to someone else. She crumpled the telegram in her fist and looked out across the land. Her grandfather had claimed, where her father had been born, where she had taken her first steps. The morning sun painted the distant Sierra Nevada peaks in shades of gold and pink, and the meadow grass swayed in the breeze like waves on a green ocean. 10 head of cattle grazed near the creek, all that remained of the once thriving herd. Her father's illness had eaten through their savings, and the harsh winter had taken most of their livestock. She had tried everything to make ends meet, but a woman running a cattle ranch alone faced obstacles no amount of determination could overcome. The boy who had delivered the telegram shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Miss Thompson, I am real sorry. Everyone in town is talking about it. Mr. Whitmore at the bank, he does not seem to have any sympathy for your situation." Zelda forced herself to nod, her throat too tight for words. She pressed a nickel into the boy's palm and watched him ride away, his horse kicking up dust on the rutted road that led to town. When he disappeared from view, she finally allowed herself to sink down onto the porch steps, her skirts pooling around her like a deflated balloon. She had always been strong. Her mother had died when Zelda was only 8, and she had learned early to rope cattle, mend fences, and shoot straight. Her father had raised her to be tough as leather and twice as useful, never treating her as fragile just because she wore skirts. But this situation required more than strength or skill. It required money she did not have and could not earn fast enough. The sound of hoofbeats drew her attention back to the road. A rider approached, sitting tall in the saddle on a magnificent bay horse that moved with the easy grace of expensive breeding. As he drew closer, Zelda wiped at her eyes and stood, squaring her shoulders despite the despair weighing them down. The man who reined in his horse before her house looked to be in his late 20s, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of strong coffee. He wore good clothes, a black vest over a crisp white shirt, dark trousers tucked into polished boots, and a hat that had never known a day of hard ranch work. A gold watch chain glinted at his vest pocket. Everything about him spoke of wealth and privilege. "Miss Thompson." His voice carried an educated accent, not quite Eastern but refined in a way that marked him as different from the rough cowboys who usually passed through these parts. "That is me." Zelda lifted her chin, determined not to show weakness to a stranger, especially one who looked like he had never wanted for anything in his life. He dismounted with fluid ease and removed his hat, revealing a handsome face marked by strong features and an expression of genuine concern. "My name is Emmett Dalton. I own the Triple D Ranch on the other side of the valley. I heard about your situation in town this morning, and I wanted to come speak with you before the auction." Zelda's stomach dropped. Of course word had spread already. In a town as small as Yosemite, everyone knew everyone else's business. She could imagine the gossip flowing through the general store and the saloon, people shaking their heads over poor Zelda Thompson, who was about to lose everything. "If you are here to offer to buy my cattle at a reduced price before someone else gets them, You can save your breath and turn right back around." Something flickered in Emmett Dalton's eyes, something that might have been respect. "That is not why I am here. I wanted to offer you a loan to cover the debt. You could pay me back over time, keep your ranch, keep everything as it is." The offer hit her like a physical blow. For a moment, hope flared so bright in her chest it hurt. Then reality crashed back down. "And what would you want as collateral, Mr. Dalton? I have nothing left except this land, and if I put that up against another loan, I am just trading one master for another. I would not require the land as collateral." "Then what?" The question came out sharper than she intended, but experience had taught her that men rarely offered something for nothing, especially to women in desperate circumstances. Emmett met her gaze steadily. "Nothing. Just your word that you would pay it back when you are able." "I have more money than I need, Miss Thompson, and I have seen too many good people lose everything because the banks show no mercy. Your father had a reputation as an honest man. I figure his daughter deserves a chance to keep what is rightfully hers." Zelda stared at him, trying to find the trap, the hidden clause that would ensnare her. But his expression remained open, honest, without the calculating look she had seen on other men's faces when they offered help that came with strings attached. "You do not even know me. Why would you risk $800 on a stranger's word? Sometimes you have to trust that there is still goodness in the world worth investing in." He said it simply, as if it were the most natural thing imaginable. "I could take your money and never pay you back. I could sell the place next month and disappear. You could, but you will not." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and more approachable. "I am a decent judge of character, Miss Thompson. I can see you are honest just by looking at you." She wanted to accept. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to take this lifeline and hold on tight. But something held her back, a pride that would not let her take charity even when disguised as kindness. "I cannot accept. It would not be right. You do not know if I can ever pay you back. The ranch is barely surviving as it is." Emmett studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes thoughtful. "What if I offered you another option? I need someone to manage the horse breeding program at my ranch. My current foreman knows cattle but not much about horses. If you know anything about breaking and training, I would pay you a fair wage. You could use that money to pay back the loan and keep this place running at the same time." "You are offering me a job." Zelda could not keep the disbelief from her voice. "If you are qualified. Can you work with horses? My father bred some of the finest horses in the valley before he got sick. I can break a green horse in less than a week and have it responding to voice commands alone. I know bloodlines and breeding, training and temperament." The words came out with quiet confidence born from years of experience. Emmett's smile widened. "Then I would be a fool not to hire you. The job is yours if you want it. I will pay you $40 a month, which is more than fair for the work. That should be enough to cover your expenses here and pay me back within a couple of years, if you are careful." $40 a month was generous, more than most cowboys made, certainly more than anyone had ever offered to pay her. It was also, she suspected, more than the job was actually worth. He was being kind, packaging charity in a way that would let her keep her pride intact. She should have been offended. Instead, she felt grateful tears pricking at her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Emmett replaced his hat and gathered his horse's reins. "Because I can. Because it is the right thing to do. And because I have a feeling you are going to turn out to be the best decision I have made in a long time." He swung back into the saddle with easy grace. "I will go to the bank today and settle your debt with Mr. Whitmore. Come by the Triple D tomorrow morning, and we will discuss the details of your employment." The ranch is about 12 miles northeast of here, following the main road toward the high country. You cannot miss it." Before Zelda could find words to respond, before she could properly thank him or even fully process what had just happened, Emmett Dalton tipped his hat to her and rode away, his bay horse cantering smoothly down the dusty road. She stood watching until he disappeared from view, her mind reeling. A stranger had just saved her life. A wealthy rancher she had never met before this morning had paid off her debts and offered her employment, asking nothing in return except her word that she would pay him back when she could. It seemed too good to be true, and Zelda's naturally suspicious nature kept looking for the catch. But as the morning sun climbed higher and the initial shock wore off, she allowed herself to feel the relief flooding through her veins like cool water after a long drought. She still had her home. She still had her land. And tomorrow, she would start a new job that might just give her a future worth fighting for. That evening, Zelda rode into Yosemite to confirm what Emmett had told her. The town consisted of a single main street lined with wooden buildings that had weathered to silvery gray under the intense California sun. The general store, the saloon, the bank, the blacksmith, and a handful of other establishments served the scattered ranches and farms in the valley. It was not much, but it was home, the only place she had ever known. Mr. Whitmore, the banker, looked positively disappointed when she walked through his door. He was a thin man with a thin mustache and the kind of pinched expression that suggested he had been sucking on lemons. "Miss Thompson, I suppose you have come to plead for more time." "No, sir. I have come to confirm that my debt has been paid in full." His face soured further. "Yes, Mr. Dalton was here earlier today. I must say, I do not understand his reasoning. That property was worth more than the debt owed. We could have made a tidy profit on the auction. How fortunate for me that Mr. Dalton is more generous than your bank." Zelda kept her voice level despite the anger simmering in her chest. This man had been prepared to throw her off her land without a second thought, to profit from her family's misfortune. "Yes, well, the papers are all in order. Your father's debt is settled. Though I must warn you, Miss Thompson, if you fall behind on any future obligations, you will not find this bank as willing to extend credit a second time." "I will keep that in mind." Zelda turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Mr. Whitmore, has it ever occurred to you that showing a little compassion might be good for business? People remember kindness. They also remember cruelty." She did not wait for his response, stepping back out into the dusty street with her head held high. Several people nodded to her as she passed, offering quiet words of congratulation on her good fortune. News traveled fast in small towns, and apparently everyone had already heard about Emmett Dalton's intervention. At the general store, Mrs. Patterson, a plump woman with kind eyes and flour perpetually dusting her apron, caught Zelda's arm. "I am so glad things worked out for you, dear. That Mr. Dalton is something special. Came to town about 6 months ago and bought the old Morrison place. Fixed it up real nice, brought in fine cattle and horses from back east. Keeps to himself mostly, but he has always been polite when he comes into town. Handsome, too, if you don't mind me saying." Zelda felt heat creep into her cheeks. "He has been very kind to offer me employment." "Employment, is it?" Mrs. Patterson's eyes twinkled. "Well, you make sure to thank him properly. A man like that, with money and looks and a good heart, he will not stay single forever. Half the unmarried women in the territory would set their caps for him if he gave them half a chance. I am sure Mr. Dalton's romantic prospects are none of my concern. He is my employer, nothing more." But even as Zelda said the words, she remembered the way he had looked at her, with respect and something else she could not quite name. Interest, perhaps. Curiosity. She pushed the thought away. Men like Emmett Dalton did not seriously consider women like her. He probably had his pick of beautiful, refined ladies from good families with substantial dowries. He had helped her out of kindness, maybe even pity. She would do well to remember that, and not let her imagination run away with foolish romantic notions. The next morning dawned clear and bright, promising another hot summer day. Zelda rose before sunrise, fed her cattle, and saddled her horse, a sturdy roan gelding named Rusty who had been her faithful companion for 5 years. She wore her practical split riding skirt and a simple blouse, her long dark hair braided down her back. The ride to the Triple D Ranch took nearly 2 hours, following the winding road that climbed gradually toward the higher elevations. When she finally spotted the ranch, she understood why Mrs. Patterson had been impressed. The Triple D was magnificent, easily 10 times the size of her modest property. White painted fences enclosed vast pastures where cattle and horses grazed. The main house was a sprawling 2-story structure with a wraparound porch and real glass windows that caught the morning light. Barns, corrals, and outbuildings spread out in an organized pattern that spoke of careful planning and substantial investment. Several cowboys worked in the corrals, and they stopped to watch as Zelda rode up. She ignored their stares, used to being the subject of curiosity and occasionally derision in a world dominated by men. A tall man with graying hair and a weather-beaten face approached her as she dismounted. "You must be Miss Thompson. I am Frank Morrison, the foreman here. Mr. Dalton said you would be coming by this morning. He is up at the horse barn." He pointed toward a large red structure on the eastern edge of the property. "Thank you." Zelda led Rusty in that direction, taking in the impressive operation around her. Everything was well maintained, prosperous, efficient. Emmett Dalton clearly knew what he was doing when it came to running a ranch. She found him in the barn, leaning against a stall door and studying a magnificent black stallion inside. He turned when he heard her approach, and his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Miss Thompson, right on time. I appreciate punctuality." "Mr. Dalton," she nodded, suddenly feeling awkward and uncertain. In the clean, expensive surroundings of his ranch, she felt shabby and out of place. "Please call me Emmett. We are going to be working together after all. May I call you Zelda? I suppose that would be acceptable." She moved to stand beside him, looking at the stallion. The horse was a beauty, with clean lines, intelligent eyes, and a coat that shone like polished ebony. "He is stunning. He is also meaner than a rattlesnake and twice as dangerous. I bought him 3 months ago from a breeder in Sacramento who swore he was well trained. Turns out the horse has never been properly broken. He has thrown every man who has tried to ride him and kicked 2 of my best cowboys hard enough to crack ribs. I was starting to think I had wasted my money." Zelda studied the stallion carefully. She could see the tension in his muscles, the way his ears pinned back when Emmett moved closer to the stall. But she also saw intelligence and spirit rather than true meanness. "He is scared. Someone treated him roughly, probably tried to break him too fast with harsh methods. He does not trust humans anymore. Can you work with him? Maybe. It will take time and patience. I would need to go slow, earn his trust before trying to ride him." Emmett turned to look at her, his dark eyes searching her face. "You really know horses, don't you? This is not just talk." "My father taught me that horses are like people. They remember kindness and they remember cruelty. You cannot force trust. You have to earn it." She reached out slowly, letting her hand hover near the stall door. The stallion snorted and tossed his head but did not move away. "What is his name?" "The papers call him Midnight Shadow, but I have been calling him Devil since that seems more appropriate." Zelda smiled despite herself. "Well, Devil, let us see if we can become friends." Over the next hour, Emmett showed her around the ranch, introducing her to the other horses and explaining his vision for the breeding program. He wanted to develop a line of horses that combined the stamina and hardiness of Western stock with the refinement and speed of thoroughbreds. It was ambitious and impressive, and Zelda found herself drawn into the conversation with genuine enthusiasm. "You have really thought this through," she said as they walked back toward the main house. "Most ranchers around here just breed whatever horses they have without much planning. But you are approaching this scientifically, looking at bloodlines and characteristics. I spent 2 years back east studying modern ranching and breeding techniques before I came out here. I wanted to do things right, to build something that would last." He paused at the porch steps. "Would you like some coffee? We should discuss the details of your employment." The interior of the house matched the impressive exterior. Comfortable furniture, polished wood floors, and windows that let in plenty of light made the space feel welcoming rather than ostentatious. A Mexican woman emerged from what Zelda assumed was the kitchen, carrying a tray with coffee and fresh biscuits. "This is Rosa. She keeps the house running and makes the best food in 3 counties. Rosa, this is Zelda Thompson. She will be working with the horses." Rosa smiled warmly. "It is nice to meet you, Miss Thompson. Anytime you need anything, you just let me know." They settled into chairs by the large stone fireplace, and Emmett poured the coffee himself, not standing on ceremony or trying to impress her with his wealth. It made her relax slightly, though she still felt out of place in such refined surroundings. "The job is yours if you want it," Emmett said, handing her a cup. $40 a month, as I mentioned yesterday. You would work 6 days a week, sunup to sundown generally, though I am flexible about timing if you need to tend to things at your own ranch. I can provide meals here if that is easier, or Rosa can pack you food to take with you. That is very generous." Zelda wrapped her hands around the warm cup, grateful for something to do with them. "I also wanted to discuss the loan. I spoke with Mr. Whitmore and settled the $800 debt. I am in no rush for repayment. Take your time, pay me back when you can. There is no interest, no deadline. Just do good work and we will call it even eventually." Zelda looked down at her coffee, emotions warring in her chest. Gratitude, relief, and something dangerously close to affection for this man who had saved her life without asking for anything in return. "Why are you doing this, Emmett? And please do not say it is just because it is the right thing to do. There has to be more to it than that." He was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "I lost my parents when I was young. My uncle took me in, gave me a home and an education when he did not have to. He taught me that wealth is meaningless if you do not use it to help others. When he died, he left me everything, told me to make it count for something. So that is what I am trying to do, make it count." The honesty in his words touched something deep inside her. "Your uncle sounds like a good man." "He was the best man I ever knew." Emmett smiled, though sadness lingered in his eyes. "He would have liked you. He always said the measure of a person was not how they acted when things were easy, but how they fought when times got hard. You have been fighting, Zelda. That takes strength. I did not have much choice. When you are alone in the world, you either fight or you give up. I am too stubborn to give up. I am glad you are stubborn. The world needs more people who refuse to quit." He raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. "To stubbornness." Zelda laughed, a real laugh that felt good after so many weeks of worry and stress. "To stubbornness." They spent the rest of the morning discussing the specifics of her work. She would start with the stallion, spending as much time as needed to break him properly. Once that was accomplished, she would help select breeding pairs and train the foals born on the ranch. Emmett gave her complete authority over the horse program, trusting her judgment without question. "I will not micromanage you," he assured her. "I hired you because you know what you are doing. Just keep me informed of progress and let me know if you need anything." As the sun climbed toward noon, Zelda reluctantly stood to leave. She had her own ranch to tend to, and she did not want to take advantage of Emmett's hospitality. He walked her out to where Rusty waited, helping her mount with an easy courtesy that felt natural rather than condescending. "I will see you tomorrow morning," she said, gathering her reins. "Zelda," Emmett looked up at her, shading his eyes against the bright sunlight. "Thank you for taking a chance on this. I think we are going to make a good team." "I think you might be right." She smiled down at him, then turned Rusty toward home, her heart lighter than it had been in months. Over the following weeks, Zelda fell into a routine that felt both challenging and satisfying. She rose before dawn, tended to her own animals, then rode to the Triple D to work with the horses. The stallion, whom she had taken to calling Shadow instead of Devil, slowly began to trust her. She spent hours in his stall, talking to him in a low voice, offering treats, never rushing or demanding. Gradually, his ears stopped pinning back when she approached. He began to nicker when he saw her coming, to nuzzle her hand looking for the apple slices she always brought. Emmett often joined her in the barn, watching her work with quiet admiration. They talked while she groomed Shadow or worked with the other horses, conversations that ranged from ranching techniques to books they had read to dreams for the future. Zelda learned that Emmett had grown up in Kansas, that his parents had died in a cholera outbreak when he was 10, that his uncle had been a successful businessman who had taught him everything about managing money and property. "He wanted me to go back east, become a lawyer or a banker," Emmett told her one afternoon as they sat on the corral fence watching a mare and her foal. "But I always wanted this. Open land, honest work, building something with my own hands. You did go back east, though. You said you studied there. For 2 years. Learned a lot, met some interesting people, but I never felt at home there. Too crowded, too much noise and politics. I wanted space to breathe." Zelda understood that feeling. She had never been further than Sacramento, but she could not imagine living anywhere that did not have mountains on the horizon and stars so thick at night they looked like spilled milk across the sky. "I am glad you came here. Not just because you saved my ranch, but because it is nice to meet someone who understands." Emmett turned to look at her, something intense in his gaze. "It is nice to meet someone worth understanding." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning that Zelda was not quite ready to examine. She hopped down from the fence, brushing dust from her skirt. "I should get back to Shadow. He is almost ready to accept a saddle." "Zelda." Emmett caught her hand, stopping her retreat. His fingers were warm and strong around hers. "I am glad you are here, not just because you are good with horses. I am glad you are here." She looked up at him, at this man who had changed her life with an act of unexpected kindness. He was handsome, yes, but it was more than that. He was good. Decent. The kind of person who made the world better just by being in it, and the way he was looking at her now made her stomach flip and her breath catch. "I am glad I am here too," she whispered. He smiled, that wonderful smile that transformed his whole face, and released her hand. But as she walked back toward the barn, Zelda could still feel the warmth of his touch, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was falling in love with Emmett Dalton. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. She had known him barely 2 months. He was wealthy, educated, from a different world than her dusty ranch and hardscrabble existence. What could he possibly see in her beyond a competent horse trainer? He probably viewed her as a friend, maybe a charity case he had helped out of the goodness of his heart. She would be foolish to mistake kindness for romantic interest. But over the following weeks, she noticed things that made her hope she was not entirely wrong. The way his face lit up when she arrived each morning. How he always found excuses to be near her, helping with tasks he did not need to help with, bringing her coffee or lunch when she worked through the noon meal. The way he listened when she talked, really listened, as if her words were the most important thing in his world. Shadow finally accepted a saddle in late August, and Zelda led him around the corral with Emmett watching from the fence. The stallion pranced and snorted but did not buck or try to throw the saddle. It was a major breakthrough, the result of weeks of patient work. "You did it," Emmett called, his voice full of pride. "I was starting to think that horse would never be rideable. He just needed someone to be patient with him." Zelda stroked Shadow's neck, feeling the powerful muscles under her hand. "Next week I will try to ride him. Be careful. I do not want you getting hurt." The concern in his voice made her smile. "I will be fine. This is what I do, remember." That evening, Emmett invited her to stay for dinner, something that had become increasingly common over the past few weeks. Rosa prepared a feast, as she always did, and they ate on the porch as the sun set behind the mountains in a blaze of orange and gold. The summer heat had finally broken, and the evening air felt pleasant, almost cool. "I got a letter from a breeder in Oregon today," Emmett said, refilling her glass with lemonade. "He has a young mare from Champion Lines, perfect for our breeding program. I am thinking of taking a trip up there next month to look at her." "That sounds promising. I want you to come with me. Your eye for horses is better than mine, and I trust your judgment. We could make it a business trip, maybe take a week, look at some of the other ranches up there and see what techniques they are using." Zelda's heart skipped a beat. A week traveling with Emmett, just the two of them. It was improper, the kind of thing that could ruin her reputation if people found out, but she wanted to go so badly she could taste it. People would talk. Let them talk. We both know it would be strictly business. Besides, I will make sure we have separate accommodations and a proper chaperone if that makes you more comfortable. I just want your expertise, Zelda. This breeding program is as much yours as mine now." She knew she should say no. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to keep proper distance between them. But when had she ever done the smart thing? "All right, I will go." The smile he gave her was worth any amount of gossip. They left for Oregon in September, traveling by train north through California and into the lush valleys beyond. Emmett had been true to his word, booking separate rooms at every hotel and never doing anything that could be considered improper. But being near him constantly, talking with him through long train rides and over restaurant meals, Zelda felt herself falling deeper in love with every passing day. The mare proved to be everything the breeder had promised, a beautiful chestnut with perfect conformation and a gentle temperament. Emmett bought her without hesitation, arranging for her to be shipped down to the Triple D. They visited 3 other ranches, taking notes on their operations and discussing how various techniques might work back home. On their last night before heading back to California, they stood on the balcony of their hotel in Portland, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. The Willamette River flowed past, dark and mysterious, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew. "This has been a good trip," Emmett said softly. "Thank you for coming with me. Thank you for bringing me. I have never been this far from home before. It has been an adventure." He turned to face her, and in the dim light from the room behind them, his eyes were very dark. "Zelda, I need to tell you something. I have been trying to find the right time, the right words, but I do not think there is ever going to be a perfect moment." Her breath caught. "What is it?" "I am falling in love with you." "No, that is not right. I have already fallen." I think I started falling the first morning I rode up to your ranch and saw you standing there, so proud and brave even though your world was crumbling around you. These past 3 months working with you, getting to know you, they have been the best months of my life." He reached out, taking her hands in his. "I know this is sudden. I know I probably should not be telling you this when we are away from home and you might feel pressured, but I cannot keep it inside anymore. I love you, Zelda Thompson. I love your strength and your kindness, and the way you talk to horses like they are people. I love how you never give up and how you laugh when something strikes you funny, and how you look at the world with wonder even after it has been so hard on you." Tears sprang to Zelda's eyes, happy tears that she did not try to hide. "I love you too. I have been trying not to, telling myself it was foolish, that you were just being kind, but I cannot help it. I love you, Emmett." He pulled her close, and she went willingly, wrapping her arms around him as he held her like she was something precious and rare. They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, feeling the rightness of it settle into their bones. When he finally kissed her, it was gentle and sweet and full of promise. Zelda felt like she was flying, like her heart might burst from happiness. All the hardship, all the pain and worry of the past months, it had led her here to this moment, to this man who had saved her in every way that mattered. "Marry me," Emmett whispered against her hair. "I know it is fast, but I do not want to waste time. I know what I want, and I want you." "Marry me, Zelda." "Yes." The answer came without hesitation, without doubt. "Yes, I will marry you." They returned to Yosemite engaged, and the news spread through the town like wildfire. Mrs. Patterson crowed about how she had known from the start that those two were perfect for each other. Mr. Whitmore looked sour, probably disappointed that Zelda had not failed and lost her ranch after all. The other ranchers congratulated Emmett on his choice, and several of the unmarried cowboys looked heartbroken that the lovely Miss Thompson was officially off the market. They were married in October, in a small ceremony at the church in Yosemite with the whole town in attendance. Zelda wore a dress of pale blue silk that Rosa had helped her sew, with wildflowers from the mountain meadows in her hair. Emmett looked handsome in a new black suit, his eyes shining with love as she walked down the aisle toward him. Frank Morrison served as best man, and Mrs. Patterson stood up with Zelda, dabbing at her eyes throughout the ceremony. The preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and when Emmett kissed her in front of everyone, Zelda felt like the luckiest woman alive. The reception was held at the Triple D, with tables set up under the trees and enough food to feed an army. Rosa had outdone herself, preparing dishes that had people coming back for seconds and thirds. Music played, couples danced, and as the sun set over the mountains, Emmett pulled Zelda into his arms and waltzed her around the makeshift dance floor. "Happy?" he asked, holding her close. "Happier than I have ever been." She laid her head on his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, feeling safe and loved and home. They spent their wedding night at the ranch house, which was now officially Zelda's home too. Emmett carried her over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the middle of the bedroom. Candles flickered on every surface, filling the room with warm light and the scent of beeswax. "I love you," he said, framing her face with his hands. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. I could never regret this. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me." She kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope into it. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a joining of souls as much as bodies. Emmett was gentle with her, patient, making sure she felt cherished and desired. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the sheets, talking softly until sleep claimed them both. Zelda woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows and her husband's arm around her waist. "Husband." The word still felt strange and wonderful. She turned to find Emmett already awake, watching her with such love in his eyes it made her chest ache. "Good morning, Mrs. Dalton." "Good morning." She smiled, testing out the name in her head. Zelda Dalton. It had a nice ring to it. They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making love again with the unhurried ease of people who had all the time in the world. Eventually, Rosa's discreet knock on the door reminded them that the world continued on, and they reluctantly rose to face the day. Life settled into a new rhythm. Zelda moved most of her possessions to the Triple D, though they kept her small ranch running as well, using it primarily for cattle grazing. She continued working with the horses, and under her guidance, the breeding program flourished. Shadow became Emmett's primary mount. The bond between horse and rider so strong that people came from all over the valley to see the once wild stallion respond to the slightest touch. Winter arrived, bringing snow to the high country and turning the valley into a frozen wonderland. Zelda and Emmett spent long evenings by the fire, making plans for the ranch's future and talking about the family they wanted to build. On Christmas morning, Emmett gave her a beautiful sorrel mare, already pregnant with Shadow's foal. "For our breeding program," he said, grinning at her delighted expression, "and because I love seeing you happy." Zelda threw her arms around his neck. "You are too good to me. Impossible. I could never be good enough for you." The new year brought changes and challenges. A hard freeze in January killed several head of cattle, and they had to work long hours ensuring the rest of the herd had enough food and shelter. In February, a pack of wolves started harassing the livestock, and Emmett had to hire additional men to patrol the property. Through it all, Zelda worked beside him, proving herself capable of handling anything ranch life threw at them. In March, she realized she was pregnant. The discovery filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She told Emmett over dinner, watching his face transform from confusion to understanding to absolute delight. "A baby." He stood so fast his chair fell over backward. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." Zelda laughed as he swept her up and spun her around, careful despite his excitement. "When? Are you feeling all right? Should you still be working with the horses? We need to get a doctor out here, make sure everything is progressing properly." The words tumbled over each other in his excitement. "I am fine. The baby is not due until October, so I have plenty of time. And yes, I can still work with the horses. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, Emmett. I am not going to break." But despite her protests, he insisted on hiring additional help so she would not have to do any heavy lifting. Rosa fussed over her constantly, making sure she ate enough and rested properly. Frank Morrison and the other cowboys treated her like she was made of glass. It was simultaneously annoying and touching. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the spring and into summer. Zelda's belly grew round, and she had to stop riding Shadow when it became too uncomfortable. Instead, she focused on training the younger horses and overseeing the breeding selections. The ranch thrived under their combined management, and by summer's end, they had earned enough that Zelda was able to fully repay Emmett the $800 he had given her. "You do not have to do this," he protested when she handed him the money. "That was a gift, not a loan." "It was a loan, and I am paying it back. My pride demands it." She folded his fingers around the bills. "Besides, we are married now. What is yours is mine, and what is mine is yours. So I am essentially paying myself back if you think about it." He laughed and pulled her close, or as close as her belly would allow. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry. I love you, Zelda Dalton. I love you more than words can express." Their son was born on a clear October morning, arriving 3 weeks early and in a hurry, as if he could not wait to see the world. Emmett paced outside the bedroom while Rosa and the doctor attended to Zelda, nearly wearing a path in the floor. When he finally heard the baby's cry, he burst through the door before anyone could stop him. Zelda lay propped against pillows, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft blankets. She looked up as he entered, tears streaming down her face. "Come meet your son." Emmett approached slowly, as if afraid he might wake from a dream. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and looked down at the tiny red face peeking out from the blankets. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was making little snuffling sounds as he rooted against Zelda's chest. "He is perfect," Emmett breathed. "He is absolutely perfect. We need to name him." Zelda traced one finger down their son's tiny nose. "I was thinking maybe Samuel after your uncle." Emmett's eyes filled with tears. "He would have been honored. Samuel Dalton. It is perfect." Little Samuel proved to be a strong, healthy baby with an appetite that amazed everyone and lungs that could wake the dead. Zelda adapted to motherhood with the same determination she brought to everything else, though the exhaustion of caring for a newborn sometimes left her wondering if she would ever sleep through the night again. Emmett was a devoted father, taking turns walking the floor with Samuel when he fussed, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours just staring at his son with wonder. Watching him with their baby made Zelda fall in love with him all over again. Winter came again, bringing Samuel's first Christmas. They decorated the house with pine boughs and ribbons, and on Christmas morning, Samuel sat on a blanket near the tree, fascinated by the candlelight reflecting off the glass ornaments. He was too young to understand presents, but Emmett had carved him a set of wooden horses that would be treasured for years to come. "This is everything I ever wanted," Emmett said, holding Zelda close as they watched their son play. "A family, a home, someone to love who loves me back. You gave me all of that. We gave it to each other." Zelda kissed him softly. "I would have lost everything if you had not come along when you did. You saved me, Emmett." "No, we saved each other. I was lost before I met you, just going through the motions of life without any real purpose. You gave me a reason to build something meaningful." The years passed in a blur of hard work and happiness. Samuel grew into a sturdy toddler with his father's dark hair and his mother's determination. The ranch continued to prosper, and the Triple D became known throughout California for producing some of the finest horses in the territory. Zelda's training methods were copied by other ranchers, and people came from as far away as San Francisco to buy horses she had personally trained. When Samuel was 3, Zelda discovered she was pregnant again. Their daughter, Emma, was born in the summer of 1887, a tiny thing with wispy blonde hair and blue eyes that eventually turned brown like her mother's. She was quieter than Samuel had been, content to watch the world with solemn attention. 2 years later, another son arrived. They named him James, and he proved to be the most adventurous of the 3, climbing out of his crib before he could properly walk and giving his parents constant heart attacks with his fearless nature. The house filled with noise and laughter, with muddy footprints and scattered toys, with bedtime stories and goodnight kisses. Zelda sometimes stood at the kitchen window, watching Emmett teach Samuel to rope or Emma to ride, and marveled at how much her life had changed since that terrible morning when the telegram arrived. She had come so close to losing everything. If Emmett had not shown up that day, if he had not been the kind of man who helped strangers without expecting anything in return, she would have been turned off her land with nothing but the clothes on her back. Instead, she had built a life beyond her wildest dreams. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Emmett took her back to Portland, retracing the trip where they had first admitted their love. They stood on the same hotel balcony, older now, with gray starting to thread through Emmett's dark hair and laugh lines crinkling the corners of Zelda's eyes. "Do you remember this night?" Emmett asked, pulling her close. "I remember thinking I must be dreaming, that someone like you could not possibly love someone like me. Someone like me. Zelda, you are the strongest, bravest, most capable person I have ever met. I am the lucky one." She leaned back to look at him, at this man who had been her salvation and her partner, her best friend and her great love. "We are both lucky. We found each other when we needed each other most. I would find you in any life, in any time. We were meant to be together." He kissed her, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 10 years of love and the promise of many more to come. They returned home to their children and their ranch, to the life they had built together. Samuel was 10 now, tall for his age and already showing an aptitude for ranching that made his father beam with pride. Emma was 7, quiet and thoughtful with a gift for healing injured animals. James was 5, wild as the wind but with a heart as big as the sky. The years continued to pass. Samuel grew into a fine young man, taking on more responsibility around the ranch. Emma discovered a talent for painting, capturing the beauty of the valley in watercolors that people began to buy. James, despite his reckless nature, proved to have his mother's way with horses. Zelda and Emmett grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They faced challenges, droughts and hard winters, sick animals and economic downturns. But they faced everything together, their partnership unshakable. On Zelda's 50th birthday, Emmett gave her a small box wrapped in tissue paper. Inside was a worn piece of yellow paper, carefully preserved. She unfolded it and recognized the telegram that had arrived so many years ago, announcing the auction of her property. "Why did you keep this?" she asked, tears springing to her eyes. "To remind myself of how grateful I should be. If your father had not fallen ill, if the bank had not foreclosed, I never would have had a reason to ride up to your ranch that morning. Every terrible thing that happened led us to each other. So I keep this to remember that even the darkest moments can lead to light." Zelda threw her arms around him, holding him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of him. "I love you so much. I love you too. Every single day I wake up grateful that I got to spend it with you." Samuel married a girl from town when he was 23, a sweet-natured young woman who took to ranch life like she was born to it. They gave Zelda and Emmett their first grandchild, a boy they named Emmett after his grandfather. Emma married a man she met in Sacramento, a teacher who supported her artistic dreams. James, true to form, married a woman as wild and free-spirited as he was, and together they started their own small ranch on land Emmett and Zelda gave them as a wedding present. The house that had once rung with the voices of children now filled with the laughter of grandchildren. Zelda taught them to ride and rope, passing down the skills her father had taught her so many years ago. Emmett carved toys for them and told them stories about their grandmother's bravery and strength. On a warm spring evening in 1912, Zelda and Emmett sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and rose. They were both in their early 70s now, slowed by age but still active, still engaged with life and each other. "You have any regrets?" Zelda asked, her hand in his. "Not a single one. My only regret would be if I had not had the courage to ride up to your ranch that morning, if I had let fear or propriety stop me from helping you." He squeezed her hand gently. "What about you? No regrets. Every choice I made, good or bad, led me here to you, to this life. I would not change anything." They sat in comfortable silence as the light faded and stars began to appear overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied, and closer by, They could hear their grandchildren playing before bedtime. "Tell me again about the day you saved me," Zelda said softly. Emmett smiled, launching into the story he had told 100 times before. "I rode up to this little ranch outside Yosemite, and there on the porch stood the most beautiful, proud, fierce woman I had ever seen. She looked like she wanted to shoot me for having the audacity to try to help her. I did want to shoot you a little bit, but you let me help anyway, and that simple choice changed both our lives forever. Best decision I ever made. Second best. The best was agreeing to marry me." Zelda laughed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You are probably right about that." They grew quiet again, content in each other's presence. The years had been kind to them, filling their lives with love and purpose, children and grandchildren, success and satisfaction. The small ranch that had nearly been lost had become part of a thriving legacy that would continue long after they were gone. As night fell completely and the stars blazed overhead in all their glory, Zelda thought about the telegram that had arrived so many years ago. It had seemed like the end of everything. Instead, it had been the beginning of the most wonderful adventure she could have imagined. She had been saved by a stranger who became her husband, her partner, her greatest love. And in saving her, he had saved himself too, finding purpose and meaning in helping someone in need. Together, they had built something beautiful, a life filled with love and family and the satisfaction of work well done. The night air grew cool, and they went inside hand in hand, just as they had done every night for the past 30 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, grandchildren to spoil and horses to train, fences to mend and meals to share. But tonight, they had each other, and that was more than enough. They climbed the stairs to their bedroom, moving slowly but steadily, helping each other as they had always helped each other. And as they lay down to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms as they had been for 3 decades, they both sent up silent prayers of gratitude for the day their paths had crossed. Zelda Thompson had almost lost everything. Instead, she had gained the whole world. And Emmett Dalton, looking for a way to make his wealth matter, had found the one thing money could not buy: a love worth living for. The ranch continued long after they were both gone, passed down through generations who knew the story of how it all began. The story of a banker who foreclosed on a woman's last property, a rich cowboy who bought it and gave it back, and the love that blossomed when 2 lonely souls found each other at exactly the right moment. It became a legend in Yosemite, told and retold, embellished and romanticized. But those who had known Emmett and Zelda personally always insisted that no embellishment was necessary. Their love had been real and true and strong enough to weather any storm. They had saved each other, built a life together, and left behind a legacy of kindness and compassion that inspired everyone who knew their story. And on quiet evenings when the wind whispered through the valley, people swore they could still hear the echo of laughter from the old Triple D ranch, the sound of a love that had transcended death itself, living on in the hearts and memories of those they had touched. The end.